Oh, hello everybody. I hope you had a good week. Today I'm going to do a bit of a tutorial style video because I've been doing a lot of talking lately, so I thought it's time to do some making. And also I'm busy working on a big order still that I'm just wrapping up. I've got a few more pieces to make for a shop. It's about 64 pieces, around over 4,000 euros. So yeah, looking forward to getting that finished and posted off. So I thought I would show you a kind of beginner, just over beginner type of earrings that I'm making today. So they're quite simple, but yeah, just thought I would share how I make them and I'll talk through the steps. So stick around if that sounds like something you're interested in, and let's get right to it. My name is Megan and I'm a jewelry designer maker from South Africa, now living in Europe. For the last 7 years, I've been selling my jewelry all around the world in shops, boutiques and exhibitions. At the end of 2021, I took a huge leap of faith. I quit my 9-to-5 job in London, moved to Belgium and started a coaching business. Follow along as I share my experience and take you through the day-to-day of being a jewelry designer, from making to running a successful jewelry brand. I'm gonna need this, and I'm gonna need this. So in here I keep all of my templates, my little templatey book of, sometimes it's just paper cutouts and sometimes it's the actual things, so like a sample of it, but it's got all my measurements and sizes of all the metals that I've used, because obviously if you don't have the piece then sometimes you forget, was it 0.6 or was it 0.8 and you can't remember. So I just keep it all in here, and like samples of pieces of chain and ring sizing and stuff like that. So today I am going to be making these lunar earrings, so I just want to check the size. So they are 18 mil across, and then they've got a little slit in them that is 0.9 mil deep. So that, I'm going to use my little templatey drawy thingy bobby here to draw that onto the metal. So let me just go and grab that. And I didn't write the metal thickness down here, but I know that's 0.6, so actually I'm going to add that to it, so in case in the future I don't forget. But yeah, 0.6 is a good thickness of metal. So let's grab some sheets. The stash from when I left, I bought a big chunk. So I'm going to use that. Biodegradable, very nice. Right, so we are going to need to draw on there with a scribe. So I'm going to use my 18 wide here. I'll just turn it around. And always use in the corner because you'd never want to waste any materials, especially expensive things like silver. So it's always good to use just what you need. And I need to make 2 pairs of this. I'm going to do 4 of these. So you always make sure that you leave like just maybe about 1 or 2 mil between each shape that you're drawing, because obviously when you're cutting you want to cut about a mil over the size that you want, so that means you can file down to the size and then your shape will be right, because especially with a circle you want it to be as perfect as possible, so you need to be able to see the line. So we want to leave a bit of space for the saw blade and what metal the saw blade gets rid of, so like that. So I've got enough space. If I cut in between here like that, imagine cutting there and there, then we're going to have enough space to file down to there. So I'll do a little bit around the edge of all of these ones. Before I start cutting, I'm just going to show you guys what I did here. So on the back of my, well, the back doesn't matter, on the one side of your metal, when I get it, because obviously it doesn't have any sizes on, this piece didn't, so then I just draw it over it and just write 0.6, so that if I only have a piece, I'm likely to see the size of it, so that I don't get confused. So let's get cutting these guys out. see here, now my saw blade won't go any further, so what I'm going to do is very carefully just take it out, and because it's quite far in there, I'm just going to loosen it like that, and then I'm going to put it back in, so just tighten it again, push against it and tighten, so it makes a nice guitar string sound, and then I'm going to come in from this side. So as you can see, so the way I cut it out is I left about just around 1 mil bigger, so you just do your best as you can, and then you file the rest. So don't stress too much about it, but just make sure you don't cut onto that line, and you should be good. So if you're just starting out as well, I just wanted to also point out that you need to be very careful of not having your finger in front, because like for example, it could be quite nice and stable if I hold it like that, but if I slip, then I'm gonna cut myself. So always just make sure that your fingers are behind, so hold it as strong as you can. Sometimes it's useful to as well push your thumb underneath, so you're kind of like pinching rather than just pushing while you're still building strength in your fingers. So just be very aware of that, and just trying to find whatever feels most comfortable to make sure that the metal doesn't move. And if your blade gets stuck, like when you're sawing, it gets stuck, all you need to do is just let go, and you'll see that it kind of swings back into place, and then it's not going to be hooked anymore. And always just make sure that the metal is supported by the bench. So I always move back up, so I'm using this section of the bench here rather than the edge, because this isn't flat anymore on mine and it might wiggle a lot, so always just kind of move it back there. But if you start seeing sawdust, then obviously you know you're cutting the bench, so just move back a tiny bit again. Another one down, and then the last one. So what I did is I actually just cut the piece off, because then I can go around with the blade, because it was getting in the way on the edge of the metal there. So here, you see, it makes more sense for me to put it on the supported bit here, and then just cut that bit off there. And I'm pinching up here, so I hold it nice and steady. Next up, we need to file all of the edges. I'm gonna grab my file here. I use my nice big one, because obviously we want to take off quite a bit. And then just doing that. And what you want to be doing when you're filing a round thing is you want to be moving this hand and this file kind of in a it's not really circular, but curved. You're curving it. So sometimes there's little bits that hook. You can always just turn them around and do it that way, but obviously we want to be seeing the line, so we want to just go around, around, around. So working your way down to that line, and this takes a little bit of time, I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, just enjoy the process. Listen to a podcast, listen to some music, and yeah, just get into the zone. So what do you guys like to do when you're making jewelry? Like, I like to listen to podcasts sometimes, or watch a YouTube video in the background, or something that's kind of, yeah, entertaining for my mind. What do you guys like to do? Drop me a comment. I'm always curious to see what people enjoy while they're doing it. Another idea I had was maybe to do a video sometime, a YouTube video sometime, where I just create a playlist of some really nice music, so you can have that on in the background, and I'll be making in the background as well, and we can kind of pretend we're making together. What do you guys think of that idea? Should I do it? Some people have punches that cut out circles, so disc cutters, but I don't have one of those, so I do it the organic way. So once I've done a good job from what I can see in terms of the getting close to the line, then I take off the plastic and then just check it by eye and see what it looks like. So if I think there's anything that needs to be fixed, then I go and just fine-tune that a little bit. So when you're finished filing, you're going to have a really sharp little rough edge all the way around your piece. So what you want to do then is sandpaper, use sandpaper to smooth that off so that it's smooth to the touch. So I've got like a little triangle piece of stick here. So I bought this from a shop and then I just keep reusing it. So I just wrap my own sandpaper around it. So for this one, I've got a 600 grit because I just want it to be quite smooth when I'm done. And then I just tear off a layer as I go when it gets worn out. So I wrap quite a big piece around it. And then you just want to make sure you don't really slip onto the main part. So I hold my fingers quite close to the edge like that. And then just go around the edge and then also just at a bit of an angle so that you're just getting off that little lip, that little sharp bit there. So without actually without sanding the actual surface, I'm kind of coming in at an angle like that so that I can get rid of that. But you see how it's not actually touching. So I just go around like that and also around here. So I do this bit first. So what we're doing with this around the edges is getting rid of the file marks as well and also just perfecting the shape. So you just check until you see that you're happy and there's no grooves and dents and file marks, so it will all shine the same if it's looking good. So you want to make sure that it's doing that. So I've got like I'd say I'm pretty happy with my circle, but if there's any areas that are just a little bit off, you can just spend a little bit longer on those sections over there. So I'm just gonna do the edge first and then I'm gonna get rid of the lip, because when you're doing this way, then sometimes it pushes it out as well. So it's just going to mean that the edges are even smoother to the touch by doing this bit first and then going around the edges in terms of the sideways. So I've got 4 of these guys to do, and yeah, so I'm just going to do all of these and then move on to the next step. Right, what I need to do now is mark the line. So also I'm just going to use my little template thing as a check to see if it's a perfect circle, which it is. And on the template it's got these lines over there and over there. So I'm just going to take my ruler and lay it across there so I know that I'm going through the center. And I'm going to mark it so that it is 1 centimeter up. There. So here, because I want to cut directly on the line, you can see my little scribe line there, I'm going to actually rest my blade against my fingernail at the start of that line so that I know it's not going to skip and hook in different places and make little dents. And when you're starting, you want to just very, very gently rest the blade against and pull down just to get it to bite. And once you've got that little dent, then you're good to go. So oops, exactly, that's exactly what you want to do. And I'm not pushing at all, I'm just going gently up and down with the blade straight. So what I'm going to do now is paint some flux onto the back of the earrings. So I'm just going to prepare them all. So I've got my flux on those backs of the earrings, and then I'm just going to grab it on the side of the pin with the little groove, and then just put a bit of flux on the end of that. So the point of the flux, in case I haven't explained this before, in case you're new to soldering, the point of the flux is to keep the metal clean so that it doesn't oxidize, because if the metal's oxidizing, it means that the solder is not going to flow there. So that's already prepared for me now, and now I'm going to grab one of these little guys. Just you always want to use as little as possible solder so it doesn't leave a big messy blob, So obviously over time solder changes color and then you're going to see it. So I'm going to use that one over there, and then I'm going to light up my torch. This one I have to click to the left, click, and then lock. And I'm going to pick up the piece of solder with the end of my pin and get that attaching on the end there. It's kind of gotten stuck around the side, but I'm just going to try and keep it there, and I'm going to position this where I want it. That. And with the heat, now I'm focusing the heat on the actual earring itself, and then you're going to watch the solder flow down. There you go. And join. Voila. I'm going to chuck it in the quenching bowl. And then grab it and chuck it into it. And the last one.
A few minutes later.
So those have been in the pickle for a couple of minutes. So let's check on them. Ooh la la, so nice and clean. You see that? So nice and clean, so we just need to polish those up. Give them a little rinse. So I'm just giving them a little dry off so that all the stuff doesn't get all yucky. Right, so what I'm going to do now is, because there is no real scratches on it and it's a nice clean piece of sheet, and I want a nice matte finish, I'm going to use my steel wool. So I've got this quadruple 4 grade steel wool, so it's for like polishing things. So make sure that it is this one if you do use it. It gives a really nice matte finish that I'm quite a fan of. So just grab a piece of that, and then I'm just going to rub that round and round on the front of it, like that, and the back as well, and the sides, just to bring up that shine. So you can see how nice and shiny that goes. So do that all around. If you see some kind of like pinky, greeny sort of like streaks in your metal, that's called fire scale. So if you do have some of that, it's most likely to be on the back because it's from the heat of the torch, and it happens. So then you might need to use a bit of sandpaper to get rid of that. But first of all, I'm just going to give it a little once over with a steel wool and just check if I have any or not, or if we're good. So yeah, there is some on here, which is kind of to be expected in a way. So then I'm going to actually just sand that with this guy just to get rid of that. So sometimes when you have that, you need to just actually sand a bit of it away. What it actually comes from is because silver is an alloy. So an alloy means a kind of a mixture of metals. So silver, as we know, it's 925, the kind of silver that we use, sterling silver. It's not pure silver. Pure silver is 999. So that means that there are other alloys in silver. So it's the copper alloy, so it's the copper in the silver that comes to the surface when we heat it up. So that's why it's kind of that like pinky sort of color. So you want to get rid of that because over time it gets darker. So just make sure that you don't have any of that, because otherwise, say your work is sitting in a shop somewhere and then suddenly they look at it and they're like, what are all of those marks? Where the hell did they come from? So I always try and look at it from not with the light shining directly on it, but at a bit of an angle, so it's a bit more in shadow, because then you see it a lot clearer. So I'm just going to get rid of all of that on the back, but there isn't any on the front, which is usually the case. Like where the heat is the most, you're gonna have that. So when the solder is flowing, you want to take off the heat like straight away, because the longer the heat's on, the more likely the copper is going to come to the surface. And to be honest, it's perfectly natural. It literally happens almost every time, even if you take the heat away. So just keep an eye out for it. Sometimes you're lucky and it doesn't show, but depends on the piece as well. Right, so I've just grabbed the macro lens, so I'm just going to show you guys what I mean. So when you get it out of the pickle, sometimes it looks all good and nice and white, but you can kind of sort of see where the flux bubbled a little bit. I'm just going to try and get it to focus on there. So you can sort of see that, but it still looks white. But if you take the steel wool and just give it a little rub to see, then we're going to see the color change, and that those little marks don't go away. In fact, they actually kind of get emphasized a little bit more, and you start to see the pinky color. So I'm just going to give it a little rub here so you can see what I mean. So like that. So kind of there. Can you see that it's kind of like got the darker black background, and then it's got the whiter dots? So the white dots is not affected by the lime scale. Belgium is not affected by the fire scale, but all the behind, you see where it's darker, that is actually the fire scale on it. So what we want to do is to sand that down so that it all becomes white, like where the dots are. So now what I'm going to do for the final touch of the earrings is I'm going to twist this like that with my superhuman strength and give it a little bit of a 3D effect. And now what I'm going to do is use the sandpaper. So I've got a 600 grit here, and I'm going to be very careful not to accidentally slip onto the surface, because obviously we have a nice finish there. I just want to make sure there's no sharp bits on there. So I just put it in between there and just get the edge, you know, like we did around the outside. Just rub gently around the edge and make sure that it's got no file marks in there. And I'm also going to give it a little gentle rub on the tip there, just so it's not sharp. Feels good to the touch, no sharp bits. Voila! Obviously now we need to give it a little wash, so I just use some dish soap and some warm water and then dry it off. Beautiful. Well, that is the making of them done, but I would like to say thank you so much. I cannot believe it. This week we just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you all so much. It's been such a journey, literally just over 1 year, and we hit 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, so thank you for everyone for subscribing and watching and commenting and doing all of the lovely things you guys have been doing. It really is such a pleasure reading your comments, and I try and respond to every single one of you guys to show my appreciation for you, showing your appreciation for me. Sharing is caring, right? So on that note, I have a Patreon. For those of you guys who are new to YouTube or don't know what a Patreon is, it's basically a way for my audience to support what I do, because obviously YouTube doesn't pay me anything, but I do it from the goodness of my heart for you guys, because I really want to support you guys and I love helping you guys. So if you feel drawn to it, there's a few different options, so different amounts that you can support me with each month, so ranging from bronze all the way to diamond. So there's some really exciting different offers, but the gold one is actually something that some of you who are maybe interested in the one-to-one coaching but don't feel like you can afford the one-to-one support, but would still like to have my advice and support in a more group form, then the gold option has something very interesting that you guys might be interested in, where we basically have a group call once a month, and you guys can share all your questions beforehand, and I'll make my best effort to go through all of your questions, to go into detail and discuss those with you guys. So it's maybe a nice option if you're still want a bit of help but not fully invest in the full one-to-one coaching program. So check it out if you guys are interested. There's a link in the description. So I hope you guys found that helpful, and I just wanted to show you guys with this tutorial that you can use really limited amount of tools and really limited amount of skills to make something that's really quite nice. So these sell really well, and yeah, I stock them in shops, so you know, you don't need to feel like you need to know everything before you start making money with your jewelry. So yeah, I hope I explained a lot of the details along the way with the making so that you guys understood everything, and I tried to explain the fire scale and all the bits. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Drop a comment down below if there was something that I said that you were like, I didn't know that. And yeah, that's pretty much a wrap for this week. So I just want to show off one more time my beautiful earrings. Ta-da, ta-da. So these guys are pretty much ready to be shipped off next week to the US. So wishing you guys a super lovely week once again, and I look forward to bringing you another video next week. Bye guys, thanks for watching.